varied process and a varied path. I've done a little bit of everything, but I've done okay.
I mean, explain that to me. How do you go from interest in chess to kickboxing to webcam studio? Where's the common thread throughout that stuff? What's sort of been that thread for you?
Yeah, I think that there's a common thread there, and there's a common thread which is if you are disciplined and you have willpower, that can be applied to absolutely anything, right? If you have unlimited willpower and you can always open up a can and smear it on to whatever you're doing, you're going to do well. So I had willpower when I was playing chess. I had willpower when I was kickboxing to make sure I trained as hard as humanly possible to become a 4-time world champion. I had willpower when I had a house full of 75 women, when I refused to sleep with them and kept my mind focused on the money. So it's all about that, It's all about self-control and self-discipline and making sure that you are the center of your own universe. And a lot of people agree with this, and a lot of people say this, and they go, yeah. But it's very rare to meet someone who's serious about it, in my experience. If you're truly serious about brute willpower, you can achieve anything. Like you can do absolutely anything. That's what it's all about. So I just had the same universal stubbornness and refusal to fail. And anything I've ever applied it at, I've done very well with for that reason.
I mean, I love that message. I mean, discipline, reigns king above all. And, I got Elon back here in the background because I feel like he's one of those examples of people that, really just push it to the limits of, what are we capable of and what can you do with your life? And
if you don't, yeah, you're right. And if you don't have discipline, you don't have anything, right? People often say to me, "Oh, but Tate, you're lucky. You're a kickboxer and you were talented." Yeah, I was talented, but I didn't find out I was talented until I was disciplined. If I wasn't disciplined enough to train, I would have never seen my talent because the guy with less talent than me, who trained harder than me, would have been kicking my ass. So you don't get to discover anything about yourself. You don't get to discover any of your genetic advantages, any of your talents. You don't get to discover anything about who you are as an individual, your spirit, your soul, what you're made of. Without discipline, you can't even discover anything. So discipline is a key to discovery. Discipline teaches you all about yourself. It teaches you what you really have. There's a whole bunch of people out there that might be the best pianists in the world, but they've never had the discipline to learn piano. So nobody knows. And that's how life works. So discipline is extremely important if you ever want to become anybody or be anything. And everybody knows this, and it's a bit cliche to say, right? But I think that is the common theme. I was extremely disciplined as a child. I had a very disciplined upbringing playing chess, and I could take that upbringing and self-discipline and apply it to myself with everything else I've done, fighting and webcam studios, and now I own casinos and mentorships, et cetera, et cetera. And I make millions and millions of dollars, and people look at me and go, "Oh, but how?" And I'm like, "What do you mean how? It's do the right things every day like you're supposed to, on time, every day, and life usually comes together." I really believe that.
I mean, when I look around and I see people in the modern world today, it seems like discipline is it's lacking everywhere you look. And I notice that there's groups and there's people like yourself that are promoting this idea in this way of their life. What do you notice for people that come to you who are lacking that and are looking for a change? What is it that is what's a trigger for them? What's something that actually incites that change?
Well, that's a good point. And the reason nobody has discipline anymore is because it's not taught. Discipline isn't taught. And the idea of being disciplined is seen as negative. And we also live in a world where everything and everybody is vying for our attention. Everything. There's ads everywhere. YouTube happens quickly. Kids are being raised with iPads. Like when I was a kid or you were a kid, we had a coloring book. Now they got flashing lights and little video games. Like how do you think you're going to keep his attention as he grows old? He's been entertained by some of the best software developers in the world permanently for since the second he can pick up an iPad. So your attention is very, very difficult. And that's what discipline is really. It's the ability to stay focused on one thing for a long period of time. And I think most people don't realize how bad their attention span is or how much discipline they lack until they really start to suffer from it. And that's what will happen, especially as a man. I can't say as a woman because I'm not a woman, but as a man, if you don't have the ability to knuckle down and focus on something for a long time, life's going to punish you. Sooner or later, life's going to wake you up, And the reality of mastery and the reality of success is that it's not really a glamorous story. Like, how do you become the best boxer in the world? You do the same thing over and over for 15 years, jab, cross, hook. Like it's boring, but that's what discipline is. So the idea that a lot of people want to be constantly entertained, I want to be entertained, that's boring. Well, that's why you need discipline. People want to be constantly motivated. Oh, I don't feel motivated. Listen, if you're not motivated to go to the gym and that has resulted in you being obese, suffering health adversity, so you're now damaged your health. On top of that, you're less attractive to females. On top of that, your energy levels are lower. If you really need motivation to just lose weight and live a life worth living, then there's something wrong with you. I train every single day and I'm never motivated, but I'm disciplined. I never wake up and think, I want to train. I've been training my whole life. I'm bored of it, but it's something that has to be done, right? So the idea of entertainment, the idea of motivation, these things are completely detrimental to discipline. People come to me all the time and say, how do I get motivated? I say, you don't, you get disciplined. I don't care if you feel like doing X. You must do X or you will stay a loser. So do you want to be a loser or do you want to do X? It has nothing to do with motivation. So a lot of these things, people are constantly distracted. And I think a lot of the things that are taught and told about discipline are actually detrimental to a disciplined mindset as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it's discipline is perceived in a way today where it's aggressive, it's abrasive if you even promote that way of living, compared to just being sort of flushed away with the endless stream of entertainment, advertisements, and materialism that drags people along today. I mean, in focus being sort of the core theme of that, being able to focus your energy and attention away from what we're being bombarded with every single day is, I think for some extremely challenging, especially you mentioned the earlier generation that's, sort of being raised with an iPad in their hand. How will they rise above that? How will they learn focus if it's not being taught to them? And, where does that, it's like, how do you even introduce that to someone's life in the condition that we're in today?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And the reason is this is all done very purposely, right? Because they want the average person to be a worker slave. They want the average person to be a slave. Anyone who's listening to this, I say this to people all the time, slavery hasn't gone anywhere. The idea of slavery is that you work for free. Oh, you work for free and you get a house and some food. Well, let me tell you something. Most of you out there are working a job and you can afford a house and some food, and that's about it. Slavery's gone nowhere. Slavery is still here. So how do you keep people slaves? So you keep them distracted. You keep them distracted from themselves and how they feel in the reality of life long enough so that they just continue to work until they die. That's what all of this mainstream mindset is. That's what it all is. And they constantly will do anything it takes to stop you from waking up and focusing on yourself. They'll talk about race. They'll talk about politics. They'll talk about anything it is to distract you. They'll put Rihanna on the TV and she'll start singing. And they'll say, go to this concert. And then if you feel depressed with your slave life, instead of telling you to change it, they'll say, no, that's fine. Come take these depression pills. Continue to be a slave. It's just a slave mindset. So there's certain people out there. Everyone's seen The Matrix, right? If you're one of them people who's trying to wake up and there's something itching in your brain and you just don't understand what's wrong and you're just don't feel quite right in life, it's because you're a slave inside of the slavery. You're a bee in the beehive and you're trying to escape it. And the only way out is going to be through disciplined actions one way or another. They do this with mainstream culture on purpose. They make absolute morons famous. They make morons famous, and they do it. They do it so that smart people like you and I and everyone listening to this thinks, well, if that moron got a big break, my big break will happen one day. And you just keep working, keep going to work, waiting for your big break. It doesn't come. The only way to get out is through disciplined action. So you need to become extremely disciplined with yourself as an individual if you care about escaping the beehive. If you don't care about escaping, then stay a slave. That's completely up to you. But discipline's a key component. There's no other way out. There is no other way out. That is it. It's something you have to do, and you're going to have to do things you don't want to do on time every single day, or you're going to suffer the consequence. And that's how life works.
For sure. I mean, I always say like the only way out is through. And I'm curious, with your own perspective, you mentioned that you've cultivated discipline in your lifestyle from an early age with chess. But was there a point where you realized that where, sort of the only way out of the beehive, as you say, is, to continue to push that sort of mindset? Because you notice a lot of young people are able to cultivate discipline in early life with athletic sports and things like that. But somewhere around that college age, it might drop off and they get sort of sucked into the mainstream.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things is that it's a lot of people don't see success or they don't measure their own success, right? So there's a saying in fighting and it says, you're never tired when you're winning. And the point is, when you're getting your ass kicked, you're out of breath. If you're kicking someone's ass, you don't get out of breath. It's weird how that works. But life's the same, right? So if you give anybody a business idea and they start to make money, and they're making money, now they're making more money, now they're making more money, most people will have all the motivation and discipline they need to continue doing X idea and become very, very rich. The problem is people try things, they don't work. They try something, no money's coming in. They've tried something else, it's been a year, they don't see the results. And that's the hard part. That's where the discipline's really, really important because you're never tired when you're winning, right? So one of the things you can do is you go out and find ways and metrics to measure success. Maybe your goal is to get rich, but you're trying to build a website and your goal to get rich. You're not making any money yet. But visitors are going up, right? So at least you have some kind of metric. You need to pay attention to your successes. You need to pay attention to them because that's going to give you all the energy and motivation, the word I don't like to use, the discipline that you need to keep going. And as a completely adverse point, because I like to, keep everyone confused, you also have to understand that not everything's going to work all the time. You have to be prepared to throw things away. So you kind of got to be an adaptable individual, but you have to look for the positive in the universe.